Lee Mendelson Film Productions hits one out of the park once again with their brand new 50th anniversary edition, extended edition of It's Arbor Day, Charlie Brown from 1976, and a 60th anniversary edition of 1966's Charlie Brown's All Stars. This is a new, I'm going to show you in just a second. This is a new LP release, as well as CD, streaming digital, and special 2-disc picture disc release from Lee Mendelson Film Productions, the people who brought you the original Charlie Brown Peanuts animated specials through the years. They've embarked in recent years on a really steady, impressive campaign of releasing extended complete editions of the scores by Vince Guaraldi to those beloved specials. Some of the specials, are ones that I'd forgotten existed, but listening to these soundtracks has got me like running to Disney Plus to try to watch these things again. So I'm going to show you the packaging and I'm going to talk a little about it. I always get the LPs because I'm a record kind of guy. I never stop being a record kind of guy. And the packaging is so gorgeous and delightful on these that I want it as big as possible. So I'm going to show you the LP. Now I've taken it out of the sleeve that it comes in. It comes in this sort of plastic biodegradable sleeve. They are all about being environmentally forward, especially on this release, which is all about Arbor Day. They're very environmentally forward at Lee Mendelson Film Productions. So this self-sealing bag that this comes in, if you do not choose to keep this, that can be composted. You could literally throw this in a compost pile because of how it's made. It will not take up precious space for decades and generations to come. So the way it comes is packaged like this, and it's got this Japanese style obi strip. These come right off if you don't want to keep them. I'm very particular, and I love every little inch of the detail that you can see on these. So I do keep them in the bag as they come. Get some ads for some of their previous releases and a lot of information about the Arbor Day Foundation. Every one of these LPs or copies of this release that gets purchased leads to a tree being planted somewhere in need by the Arbor Day Foundation. And they tell you this is the 75th anniversary of Vince Guaraldi on record. And they talk about the bio vinyl. These are pressed a certain kind of vinyl that are reused. They're sustainably done. It's got sustainable forested paper, PLA compliant, compostable PLA bag. It's a good thing. They've been doing this for a while. It's not just for the Arbor Day album. Even if I can't say it clearly, they've been doing it clearly. So one of the things I love, first of all, the music's great. It's not, but the packaging. This looks like, all of these releases look like something you would have bought back in the 70s. They're very simple. They're very clean. They use the original Schultz or Animation Cell art for these releases. And it's like a new special is hitting CBS every time one of these things comes out. Because when I was a kid, they were on a couple times a year. It was a big deal. It was a big event when there would be a new Peanut special, or even when there would be the annual rerunning of Thanksgiving or Christmas special. And it was very exciting. And that's what it's like every time I hear there's going to be a new Lee Mendelson Film Productions release of one of the Guaraldi soundtracks, and when I get it. So it's like a little Christmas. So you have the Arbor Day, and you have Charlie Brown's All Stars, which apparently was the second special after the Christmas special, and they each have their own cover. And what's cool about this too is that when you open it up, they each have their own back cover, which they've not done like this way before, and I really, really like it. So you sort of front and your back of Arbor Day, front and back of All Stars, and the music is great, and we will get to that. But first we'll show you the packaging, and then I can have my hands free to gesticulate. So they always come with really cool liner notes, big, again, very cleanly designed with imagery from the specials. And you get you get a lot of words. The way I do it is I play the album for the first time and I read the liner notes. I play it a couple times while I read the liner notes, and then I just sit down and focus on the album before I do these videos. And you hear from Jason Mendelson and Sean Mendelson, the brothers who have taken their father's legacy of Lee Mendelson Film Productions into the 21st, what century are we in? Into the current century, and they detail their personal history and memories of these releases and of Vince Guaraldi and of the specials and their father. They detail they go track by track in terms of just talking really digging into the musicality of these releases. And then you get Derek Bangs, who is the person who is the official biographer of Vince Guaraldi. Derek Bang, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of conflating him with Lester Bangs. You get a what Vince Guaraldi was up to at the time of the recordings of each of these, in recollections of the musicians that worked on these. You get and you get that for each release. So I mean, I can't fit it in my frame. These are, who needs to look at me? These are just really deep dives into this stuff, and it's phenomenal. Like, I didn't know much about Vince Guaraldi other than he was a serious jazz guy who also did the Charlie Brown soundtracks before I started getting these releases, and I have a whole new appreciation for the man and his band, many of whom are still around. Guaraldi sadly passed away. It's as the Mendelson say, it's a bittersweet release for them because they saw him not long before he passed away. He actually passed away on the evening of the final night of sessions for the Arbor Day recordings. They finished up the Arbor Day recordings. They went out to do their weekly gig that night somewhere at a club. He did the first show. It was a great first show. On the way back to his room between shows, dropped dead, and that was it. And people have said that, of all the ways to go out, having just completed soundtrack work and a successful night doing a gig at what you love most in life, if you go out on top like that, there are far worse ways. So obviously we wish Vince Guaraldi would have lived a lot longer and been around to see how much appreciation he's getting and seeing these releases come out of his work. But he had his time, and he was certainly appreciated in his day. He was just about to go on like a cruise ship tour, performing some of this music for an adoring audience. So that's cool. So that's all of the extras. The record itself is available in different ways. And the way I tend to just go for the regular black vinyl, regular looking record, but they also come in colors, and so the black vinyl is, shiny new black vinyl sounds great. And what I love too is that they put something involving the show on the label for these too. So every one of these has really cool, pardon me, I don't want to touch the record. They have very nice, we'll just do it this way. They have very nice art on these that refer to the special in question. So the music, it's two different specials put together. Most of this is music from Arbor Day. So you get the individual tracks, you get a little studio chatter, which is always very cool on these, to hear Vince Guaraldi in the studio talking to his players and joking around and things like that. Or maybe sometimes you get a false start and it continues. The Arbor Day music could comfortably, and that's what's great about so many of these too. A lot of these you put on and you're like, and I'm in the world of Peanuts. Some of these you put on and you're like one of the previous releases that could have been out of a Pam Grier movie. And for Arbor Day, a lot of it could have fit very comfortably in a hip 70s cocktail party scene or in a Radley Metzger film. And let me be the only person, perhaps, who refers to Radley Metzger in a review of a Peanuts soundtrack. It just feels like so laid back and jazz lounge groovy. It's but at the same time, you get those lilts of other themes you've heard from the Charlie Brown series, and maybe you'll get a very different version of Linus and Lucy in there somewhere, or you get Rain, Rain, Go Away that was used previously in other Charlie Brown productions. I believe it was also used in All Stars, but they talk about an unreleased TV documentary about Charlie Brown that Guaraldi scored, that while it never came out in its day, pieces of that music he would reuse later on in his scores. It's cool, it's melodic, it's very mellow. There's a lot of keyboard and like straight jazz trio, piano, bass, and drums, and occasionally strings, a synth that replicates the notion of strings comes throughout this. So excuse me, I get very choked up when I talk about synthesizers. There's a couple of instances, as I said, of Guaraldi counting the band in, and it makes you feel like you're there. It makes you feel like you've been given like VIP access to the session, and you're sitting off to the side, just like, biting a knuckle going, oh my God, I'm watching Charlie Brown music get created by like really good jazz musicians. Arbor Day covers all of side B and all of side A and most of side B. Side B, All Stars, Charlie Brown's All Stars, is only 8 minutes of music because the master tapes have not yet been located for that. Hopefully one day they will. Clearly master tapes keep getting unearthed of various things, including these, and you're able to get just these insane releases that we never thought we would get in the old days. And again, most of these releases are really making their public commercial debut in these Lee Mendelson Film Productions albums, CDs, streaming, what have you, because most of the time, I mean, you had the original Guaraldi gigantic hit of the Christmas album way back when, and you had the Great Pumpkin album, and over time you had a couple things here and there, but these dedicated releases of the full or as full as possible soundtracks never really started happening until just a couple of years ago, until the Mendelssohns, the Mendelson boys got involved, and for which I will endlessly thank them. So the All-Stars music, it's really just basically a medley, a series of short medleys. It only runs 8 minutes, and basically what they had to work with was the original 35 millimeter audio master for the TV special, and that music, you know, it dips and dives, it cuts off. It's really manipulated to be the background for the dialogue and the action of the animated goings on. So it's not session tapes, but they, through digital trickery and wizardry, have been able to give you a sense of that music. And the audio quality is a little bit lesser than the Arbor Day music because it's not from the studio master tapes. It's from something that was mastered for TV, which is not to say that it doesn't sound good. It's just the fidelity isn't quite as, let me do something that'll really say it all. It's not quite as much of that as the rest, but didn't bother me a bit. And it was cool to hear. So hopefully one day that will turn up and it'll be its own release. Basically, what they say in the liner notes and in interviews about this. And if you've not watched the interview, what got me into all of this was Heath Holland's Serial at Midnight YouTube channel has done these amazing long interviews with the Mendelssohns about each of these releases, and oftentimes with the musicians who played on these releases. That always got me excited to listen to these. They talk about the fact that this release, both specials were baseball related, but also they kind of bookend Vince Guaraldi's involvement with scoring the Peanut specials, because whereas, you know, Christmas was the first one, but All Stars was the second special he ever did, and then the last one he ever did was Arbor Day. So it's a 10 years separated, sort of more or less beginning and end of his career with the Peanut specials. And it's interesting to sort of see how his style changed between the two, because whereas Arbor Day is very mellow, very 70s kind of lounge, this first one, All Stars, feels much more like the Christmas special. It sounds a lot more like a Charlie Brown Christmas. There's no electric instruments. It's very bouncy and light. It's upbeat jazz that kind of immediately brings to mind that early Peanut sound. And that was the thought when I got the first of these soundtracks, and I popped, as soon as I'm going to say popped it in, when I dropped the needle down on the first one of these, immediately it's like, and I'm hanging with Charlie Brown and Snoopy now. It's like it totally brings you into the mindset, and they're very like good vibes of those specials that they brought you when you were a kid, and they bring you now when you watch them and when you think about them. So this time, for his second outing in Charlie Brown's All Stars, he has a sextet. So it's more people than he usually worked with. So he brought in horns and another guitar to sort of add to that core trio. So it's a little bit of a bigger, wider ranging sound than you got in that first special, but not so, I don't want to say out there. One of the things I love about these liner notes too is I've learned so much about Guaraldi and how he was always into something different and looking to expand his sound and try different instrumentation and time signatures and styles. And you really hear that change over the course of these. So it's interesting between these two to hear these two different styles played mostly by the same people, certainly composed by the same guy and for the same audience. So I could go on and on and on about this. Too late, most of you have already said, but I really, really love these releases. And if you're a fan of Vince Guaraldi, they're essential. If you're a fan of animated TV specials from the 60s and 70s like I am, if you grew up watching these things, it is so cool to listen to the music separate from the imagery that you're used to and be able to focus on the music and realize what really good music there was created for these specials. As I say about other things I love, you know, the music probably didn't need to be as good as it was for these, but Mendelson and Guaraldi and Schultz put that effort in, and you get this stuff that stands the test of time and sounds so good by itself. Sometimes some soundtracks you listen to, and it's really there to enhance what you're looking at, and separate from the image, it doesn't work as well. But these The Guaraldi soundtracks are great. Even if you don't care about animation, they are good jazz albums. So I gotta highly recommend this, whatever format you get it in. For me, it's a standard LP, 12-inch LP, black vinyl, but you can get it in any number of ways. One of the ways it's packaged is as a 2-record set, which is a clear vinyl with a picture of a baseball on the label and a shaped brown vinyl that looks like a catcher's mitt and a clear sleeve, so that when you put them together in the package, it looks like the ball is sitting in the catcher's mitt. They split the soundtracks between the 2 LPs, so you get All Stars on the baseball vinyl and you get Arbor Day. I believe that's how it is, Arbor Day on the catcher's mitt. And if I'm wrong, just swap those two and you're correct. Available now on LP and CD and picture disc and streaming from Lee Mendelson Film Productions it's Arbor Day Charlie Brown and Charlie Brown's All Stars, respectively 50th and 60th anniversary editions.